Hello, hello. Today we have a very special video that nobody asked for and nobody cares about except me, but here are my custom figures I've done over the years and I just wanted to show you. Now we're going to be starting off with my partial customs. These are basically customs I define as doing a little work, but it just makes a lot of difference. So for instance, we're just using Gundam markers here for this one, and we're essentially just panel lining the whole figure. So I use the brown marker for the boots on Trunks here, just to really make that yellow pop and all those details, just shine. And then for his gray pants, I use a black marker on the shadows and, creases just to make it pop. And then the jacket, I use the gray one, and it's a little more subtle, but it still really makes it look really cool in my opinion. And this whole thing probably took about 10 minutes, if that. And then use brown on the skin tones, just, have a nice little contrast. And here we have the SH Figuarts East Blue Saga Luffy, and it basically did the same thing. I used black on the red, gray on the blue, brown on the skin tones, and I think it really makes this figure pop, and I think you should do it too. It's really not that hard to do, and getting the markers only like $3 or something, so I think it's definitely a worthwhile investment. Now you may recognize this because I did make a short about this, and it got pretty decent views, at least for my channel, and basically I just did a little tutorial about it where I just took the Gundam markers and showed exactly what I did. Now I think this mini Goku is a prime example of just a little bit of lining goes such a long way. I really like this figure, but after the lining it just looks so much better in my opinion, but maybe I'm just biased. And we do have Bulma too, and this one was kind of fun, a little more challenging just because the skirt part's a bit more rubbery, so it took to the ink a little differently, but other than that, everything was the same process, and I think it looks really cool. This process even works on statues too, so here we have the Pop-Up Parade by Good Smile Company, and I just used brown for the skin tones and black on the armor. I think it looks really nice. And yes, this even works on your Funkos too. Just a little bit of detail really makes it go a long way. So unfortunately, this next one's a bit of a failure. I tried using the Tamiya liquid panel liner on the Pants Hero Jolene, and it really just didn't show. But unfortunately, the face did work pretty well on the hair, so the yellow, I really liked the black contrast with the lines. It worked super well on the face, just the pants did not show up at all, which I don't know why, because it's the same plastic. Now for my final one, this is the Marvel Legends Mr. Fantastic, and you might have seen this because I made a short on tutorial on how to actually, how I panel line my figures basically, and I got a lot of comments asking why don't I just wash it, and in my opinion a panel line is basically a controlled wash, at least how I see it anyways. And I don't know, it was just like an alternative to washing, because I know washing is kind of hard. I've tried it before, it doesn't really work for me, but I was just getting an alternative to people. And also, I think panel lining is a lot easier because you just go up and down the grooves, and it's a lot cheaper too. But yeah, really fun figure. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at my hybrid customs, what I consider to be, more than panel lining, but not full on painting the figure. Just somewhere in between. It's the next. So the first thing I did was take a Gundam Real Touch marker, the brown one, and I just put it all over the hair, made it darker, wiped it away, rinse and repeat until I was happy with how it looked. And then I took a fine type marker, just the black one again, went over all the shadows, went all the little divots, just to give it some shadows, some depth, make it look a lot better than just bare plastic. Now I wanted the armor to feel used and battle worn, so I dry brushed on some silver bits on the end, just to look like it's been through hell and back, and I think it looks really cool. I'm quite proud of how the dry brushing turned out, and then I also repainted the little capsules on his belt, gold and bronze, and I painted the lightsaber clip, as well as the other food capsule there too. Overall, I'm very proud of how this Anakin turned out. So next up we have the Bring Arts Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, and as you can tell I did panel line the arms, the little muscles, as well as the shirt, and let's get into it. So for painting we did quite a bit actually. So look at the belt. I repainted the little insignia silver as well as a little purple inside just to make it look interesting. And then I painted the strap a little purplish color. Not sure why, but I thought it looked cool. I also repainted the entire shoulder pad. I gave it a nice purple metallic thing, and then I repainted the bolts silver and along with some gold accents. Same with on the hands too. And for the pants, I did go back to using the Gundam marker, this time just black. I filled in all the cracks, crevices, all the little baggy areas, just to make it look interesting, more shadowed, more depth, I guess. I don't know. I think it looked cool. And then I just use a black little fine liner just on all the cracks, just to make those pop out a bit more. Alright, next up we do have the Bring Arts Aerith, also from Final Fantasy VII, and I basically just did the same things. Now I think the most obvious difference right off the bat is the secondary pink shade that I used, which I think it does look really cool, but I only did it on the front side, you'll see in a second. Now as you can tell, I did use the black Gundam marker on her jacket, her hair, her wrist cuffs, and her boots. All just, you know, make it pop, add a little more shadow, make it look a little interesting, you know? Now initially I used gray paint line throughout the entire figure, but it looked weird, so that's why I painted over in the front, although I didn't do it in the back for some reason, because I guess, I don't know, I just never got around to it. But yeah, you can still see a little bit of the paint liner through the paint, but I think the paint was the better call in my opinion, and it's not like I ever display from the back anyway, so it's fine. Now we're into the full-on repaint customs, and these are kind of... So here we have my Super Saiyan 3 Goku SH Figuarts. This was the original one, and it had like this yellow brown color. It looked really weird for his gi. I don't know why it wasn't just orange to begin with. So I repainted to the classic orange, and I also made the shirt a darker blue, which is more accurate to the anime, and yeah. I think this figure looks a whole lot better now, although I still hate this figure, but you know, at least it looks a little better in my opinion. So next up we do have the Man of the Grand Line, the Luffy from Onigashima, and this might be one of my favorite customs I've done. Now initially this entire figure was painted with these weird metallic paints, which I really didn't like, but I kept it on the sash because I thought that made sense. But the pants, I completely repainted, used a bunch of shades in there, it's kind of cool. I did a secondary skin tone on the legs, and I also paint aligned the toes, just so you can see them a bit more. And then, as you can tell in the abs, I outlined them with the Gundam marker as well. And then I repainted the shirt in like 4 different shades of red. Quite happy how it turned out, I think it looks a lot better in my opinion. And then I also added some more secondary skin tones on the chest and the face, and I also repainted the hat entirely. Now the hat was basically brown because like they used a really heavy brown wash and just really made it look kind of eh. So I repainted a lighter yellow, and I also repainted the band. It's a little messy, but you know, it's okay. I'm happy with how it turned out, and I just think it looks really cool now. Now this is a bit controversial, but I did repaint a Funko Pop. Here we have the original Colossus Titan Pop from I think 2015 or something. Basically it was like this weird off pink and it looked really bad, so I repainted with the white, and I used a Gundam marker and I just pan aligned every single muscle detail, every single ab. Oh, it took so long to do, but I think it looks so cool now. And I also repainted all of the whites, all the reds. I added yellows, oranges to make it look it's like burning. And oh, this took such a long time to do. And I didn't finish the back because literally my paint that I was working with ran out, so I'll eventually get to it. But I did, you know, paint align the back of the body, but again, my paint aligner died while doing the head, so that's why I didn't finish it. One day I'll get back to finishing this, but I am so proud of how this turned out. This looks so cool in my opinion. It just makes a Funko Pop look actually intimidating, which is crazy. Here are the 2013 Ninja Turtles, I believe. I basically did wash, dry brushing, painted on the eyes. So there's Donnie, I also painted the weapon too. Mikey, I spent a lot of time on, I don't know why, he was my favorite, so I put a lot of work into him. Same thing with Leo, he looks pretty good. Although I lost Raph, I don't know where he is, but yeah, I basically did the same thing. And now we're on to my fully customized figures. Now unfortunately I've only done one, but I'm really proud of how it turned out. That is of course Elphaba Throp from Wicked. So I did a lot of sculpting on this figure, so let's start off with the hat. I did make sure so it's fully removable, which I'm really happy with. Hat's okay, it's not really based off any version like the play or the movie. I just kind of my own interpretation, I liked how it turns out. And let's get her off the stand and look more into details. Now if you couldn't tell, this was the Marvel Legends She-Hulk that I repurposed to make Elphaba, just because she already green and it was the figure I liked. But basically I did sculpt on some little pant details, some little wrinkles, creases, just to, you know, make it look more interesting. I kept the purple there, I don't know why, I thought it looked a nice little contrast bit of color. You can see I did make like a little dry brush with brown just to make it look more interesting, so it's just not entirely black. But I did also make a fully custom skirt with wired and everything. I've never done anything like that before, so that was really fun. I hand sewed everything and you can put it down so like a neutral pose, which I think is pretty cool. Although in the future I do want to get better on sewing. Also, this was the first time I ever dyed a figure, so that was a really interesting learning curve, but I think it turned out really well in my opinion. Now as you can see, I did do a little purple accent on the collar as well as a purple belt, and I sculpted on these arm sleeves on both sides as well as these little shoulder pads, just so it's not like a naked arm, so just there's, you know, something to look at. And also here is the custom cape. It was a lot more difficult to do than the skirt, but I think it turned out okay, more or less. It was just a lot more of a learning curve, but you know, at the end of the day, it's a cape and I can get the pose I want out of it. Now, I did decide to give her purple hair with black dry brushing just because, you know, in the book, it's described that she has purple hair in one scene, and you know, I just thought it looked nice. Now, the process of making her broom was by far the most fun and rewarding part in my opinion. So, the first thing I did was drill a hole through her hand. I took an old model kit runner and I just shoved it through her hand and glued it in place. And then from there, I just painted it brown, sculpted on all the details, make it look more wooden, and I added the thistles and the little wire around it just to like make it look more like a broom. And I think it turned out really cool, and I just love how it looks. Now, yeah, she is pretty much stuck within your hand all the time, but to be fair, she's iconic for flying around her broomstick, so I'm okay with that. Now, because the base figure was a Marvel Legend, you still have all that great articulation, and you can get all the fun, interesting pose you want, but I just have, you know, doing the Defying Gravity pose because I'm basic. But for my first ever custom, I'm really proud of how it turned out, and I want to do more in the future. So let's put her hat back on, and look at that. We got the Wicked Witch of the West. Very cool. Alright, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for another custom showcase. Eventually.